So, very good morning, all of you. Today we'll discuss about the some key features of PostgreSQL. So, in that we'll discuss about what are the data types are available, how we'll create the table, how we'll insert data into table, how we'll update the data into table, how we'll delete and drop the data. Okay. So, in that today we'll discuss only the basic things. Okay. So, we have one more lecture on this overview topic. So in that we'll discuss about the in detail. Okay, so in that we'll discuss about insert in different way, update in different way, delete, alter, and draw. Okay, so today we have only basic sessions, so you will get the idea how we'll create the table, how we'll insert the data, how we'll update the table, like that stuff. Okay, so first, we need to understand the data types. So, in the C language or any other language, we already know about the data types. So, in that section, we discuss about what is a data type, how we use, what are the primary, secondary data types are there. So, similarly, in PostgreSQL, we have a bunch amount of data types are available. In MySQL, we have also some bunch amount of data types are available. Just we need to identify what type of data is. That's why we use the data type. Okay, so it is used to identify what type of data is. For example, I want to deal with email, I want to deal with contact number. So in that we need to use integer, but in integer we have three different kinds. Okay, small int, or we can say that integer, big integer. So like that we have a certain amount of options are available. So auto increment operation is there. So we can use a bunch amount of data types. So for that, just I will suggest this is a link. So you can snap this link and you can visit that link and you will get the details about the data type. So just will overlook about the data type because we are dealing with a basic operation in that section. We don't need a major data types. So but still, if you want to become a DBA, if you want to become a what we say a best option opportunity in DBA, so you need to understand all the data types. Okay, so this one is a website, https www.postgresql.com .org. In the doc section, current data type.html. Okay, so just snap it and visit that website. So I will open it. Just we will check quick review, and after that we'll today's session is a very what we say last time session. So just we'll understand the basic capabilities, so you will get the idea, and once you get the basic understanding, so we'll do advanced type options. Okay, so here is a documentation. In that we have our data types. So table contents, in that we have numeric data type, monetary type, character type, binary type, date time, Boolean data type, enumeration data type, geometric data types. So we did not deal with that data type, but if you want to store some geometry related information, see we have lots of options. So lots of areas are available. We can say that different kinds of land information if you want to store, different kinds of geometrical information if you want to store. So then we have geometry data types. Okay, so data will be stored in that form of point, circle, line, box, rectangle, polygon. So we can store that data. Okay, in that we get the radius, in that we get the uh, constant information. Okay, so boxes length, size, width, size. If we have a triangle, then we get the all points inside the geometry type. So if you want to deal with network, okay, so for that inet address is there, CIDR is there. So we I think already discussed about the CIDR in AWS, Amazon Web Services. So CIDR is nothing but classless interdomain routing. Okay, so if you want to store that data, if you want to store, so we can say that if you want to store the IP addresses, so ऐसा भी हो सकता है in future if you want to create a website, in that you need to store the IP addresses. So in that section, we need to use the CIDR, inet versus CIDR. So we get all, if you want to store the MAC addresses, so we get all the data types, and these data types are available in PostgreSQL. So that's why majorly companies are focuses on MySQL and PostgreSQL. Okay, so they have bunch amount of data types. Okay, the string data type is there, text search type is there, UI unique ID is there. Okay, so JSON type, array, lots of data types are there. Okay, so you can quickly review that and you can work on that what data types we require. So basically we'll discuss upon the only basic data types. So see, here is a big int is there. Okay, suppose one scenario is there if you want to store the mobile number. So if you want to store the mobile number, we all know that we have 10 digit number and along with some 3 digit code. That means plus symbol is there and country code is there. Like Indian country code is a 91. Okay, like that. So if you want to store such a type of information, so can I able to use big int? Can I able to use small int? Can I able to use only int? So like that, depending on your information, we need to store that information. See, these are the data types and these are the alias. Okay, so we already learn about the as in the join operation. So it is an alias. Okay, so we can use that. Okay, so like character varying, we can use instead of that character varying, we can use a varchar also. We can use varchar also. Okay, so only character if you want to use directly, you can use a character vary. So if you want to store a bunch amount of information, and is that means we need to specify the length of that character. Okay, so we can use boolean data type, we can use geometry data types, box, bytes, circle. Okay, so majorly just we are working on the inside big int. The serial data type is also there. We will discuss about the serial data types also. Okay, don't worry. So integer data is there. Okay, JSON, MAC address. These are the famous data types. Okay, so this one is a serial data type. What does it? So if you want to store some information, okay, incrementally. So we all know that the concept of primary key. Okay, primary key does not have a duplicate values. So we can say that if you want to remove the redundant data, then we use the primary key. So in that section, primary key, if you want to use, then that must be auto-generated. Okay. So for example, here I will show you. Suppose I want to store some favorite colors. Okay. So inside that, if you want to store that information, I want to store the favorite colors inside a table. So assume that this one is my table and I want to store it. I have these two attributes. Here I'll specify the first attribute is C underscore ID, color ID. And later on I will store the name of. So make a note of that while storing that information, the color code must be unique, okay, or the entry must be unique. In that section, CID, color ID is a primary key. So we did not use a duplicate key. So if we use this CID, that means color ID as a primary key, and if we are using a data type as a serial, then the numbers are auto-generated. For example, the starting number is 1. Assume that the starting number is 1, second number is a second. So later on it will be incremented automatically. Okay, so it will increment automatically. So in that case, just we need to store the name of color. We'll do that practical, don't worry about that. Today we'll discuss how to create a table, how to insert, update, and how to delete the table. Okay, just for the basic syntax related, and you need to do the more practice on that. So once you get, so we can move on for the advanced level. Okay, so basic level कोई भी बता देगा आपको, या you can search it on internet or YouTube and you will get the basic idea, but you didn't get the advanced information like how to create different kinds of table with intermediate table. We already know about that foreign key, primary key. We already learned in a part one. In that we use the customer, product, and while designing that diagram, we use the intermediate table, okay, in third normalization form. I think you heard about that because lots of time are gone. So for that I will suggest just revise a previous sections part ones, and at that time they are useful for us. Okay, so in the major cases while designing any DBA project, they use a part one technology. Okay, so part one में ही use करते हैं. By using that they can create a ER diagram, and after that they map a relationship. Okay, and after mapping the relationship and after the normalization, they directly create the tables and databases. But see, in future or in another words, we can say that once we created a database by using a ER diagram, but still we need to change further things. For example, if you need to add the table, you need to add some columns inside that table. In that case, the part one will not be useful. Okay, in that case we need to use a part two. Part two means manually we can create a table, manually we can add the column inside the table. So for that we require a knowledge. So what I said, so if you want to use a serial data type, see here the column name is a unique and primary key. So in that case, just use a data type. Automatically, when the name will be inserted, the value will be assigned. Okay, so just I will show you. For example, I want to store the color name as here red. Okay, so here what should I do? Here I will insert a color red. So once I inserted the color inside the name, automatically serial data type generates the unique number. Okay, so here the data type is integer and the data type is a serial, but it will start with one. Okay, once we add another number, for example, another color, so we can say that blue, so it will automatically store the two. I will show you in detail practical. Okay, don't worry about that. So suppose I want to add a pink color, then automatically it will store as a three number. So that is the serial data type. Okay, so that's why I taught serial data type. Auto in, so see, check out the theoretical part. Auto incrementing 4 byte integer. Make a note of that. Auto incrementing. So in that case, we have small int, small serial. So if you want to use a 2 byte serial, then we can use that. Okay, 4 byte means we all know that 2 to the power 32. Okay, and we also know that how to calculate range. If you learn in a C language, that there is a formula of a to the power p. So this one is a formula by using that we can calculate. So what is a computer understandable bit? And we all know that computer understandable bit is always 2. And to the power, for example, 4 byte is there, so we need to convert 4 byte into bits. So how many bits are there? 4 in 1 byte, 8 bits are there. So 8 multiplied by 4, 32. Okay, so 2 to the power 32. So we need to calculate the range. So इतना बड़ा number हो सकता है ये serial number. Okay, so in that signed number, unsigned number, and if you don't know about that, then you can watch the range chapter inside C language. So आपके पास 01 का अकाउंट है यूट्यूब पे, सो उसके अंदर सी लैंग्वेज में रेंज ऑपरेटर के मैंने लेक्चर्स लिए है, सो यू कैन चेक अबाउट दैट, सो हाउ द रेंजेस विल बी क्रिएटेड. Okay, so if you want to use a text that we can use, so this is a one important thing. Timestamp is there. We'll separate lecture. We have a separate 2 lectures on timestamp. Don't worry about that. Okay, this is a major important. This is advanced level. So for that I didn't taught yet the timestamp chapter. Okay, so it's very useful chapter, and for advanced level, the DBA using the timestamp. For example, if you want to create a login date, okay, you have a website and you need to maintain the log of website. Who can access your account, admin and other customers and other employee. So what will be the timestamp when they logged in, when they log out. So like that stuff, we require a data type as a timestamp. Okay, so we need to use that timestamp. After that, some other XML related data types are there. So we can use a bunch amount of data. So I will suggest do what you, so just at least quickly revise this. We are using a very less, but still just you know that what are the data types are available, why we use that. Also check the alias name and description for that. Okay. So this is about the data type. Now afterwards, just I want to create the table. Now I want to create the table. So for that, just open the PG admin and let's try to create the table. So before that, we'll discuss about how we'll create the table. So just I will remove it. Now, what we need to do? First of all, we need to create a table, a very basic table. So we can say that we need to create a student table. Okay. So just imagine we already discussed in the part one section while creating any table. Okay. Just we analyze the attributes. It's our duty to analyze the attribute. Being as a DBA, database administrator, we need to think what kinds of data we need to insert. Okay, so for that we need to decide. So for example, Right now I want to create a table called as a student. Assume that. So the first step we already discussed about in part one. So first of all, we need to gather the information, what kind of data are available. And that gathered information will be converted into the tables. And after that, we need to analyze what kinds of table we need to store. So can I say that student ID is required? Student ID is required. For that, we need to use a data type. In that case, we'll discuss about the data type. We already learn about that the conceptual level, physical level. So had you heard? I think I had you heard about that, and I already taught you. Okay, so just revise the previous section chapters. Okay, so student ID is there. We require a student underscore name is required. So student, we can say that email is required. Email is required. Just analyze the, we'll create a very basic table. Okay. So just analyze that whenever we require a student ID. Okay. So in that case, we needed to specify the data type also. So student ID कैसे हो सकता है टेक्सचर में हो सकता है क्या we need to perform a certain operation by using a where condition. Okay, so for that, logical operators and other operators we need to use. So if we use a student ID as a text, then we cannot use greater than, less than operations. So for that, we require an integer, or we can say that int. So, but the student ID must be a unique and not, we can say that the primary key. So for that reason, so instead of that int, I will use serial. I will stored I will use serial also. Okay, so automatically when I stored the data, the student will get the unique roll number, and we did not get the redundant data. We did not get the redundant data. Okay, so we can use the int also. Okay, so I will show you what is the difference between int and serial. Okay, while inserting the data. Right now we need to create this. Now we can say that we need to provide a constraint. Okay, so we all know that student ID is unique. So for that, here I will use a student ID as a primary key. Now let's turn about second thing. We need to analyze the table. We are not creating the table, just we are analyzing what type and what things we require to create the table. So student name, so we all know that we can use the character varying. Okay, so we can use character varying, and the alias name is called as a varchar. We already know about that. Here we need to specify the link. Okay, so assume that the here I am using a character varying, and here also I can use the varchar also. Okay, because the alias name of character varying is a varchar, and here we'll specify the 50 uh, characters. Okay, so like that we can create the table. So this is a way by using that we can able to create the table. So now let's take one example and let's try to create the table so you will get the basic idea how to create a table. So here I will enter the password for that, and here I have a databases, and in that PostgreSQL I have bunch amount of database. AJ is there, PSCV, PS College, and Postgres. Okay, now what should we do? These are the previous data types, and the DVD rental, or we can say that the PS College database is there. Now we need to do what? We'll create one fresh database having the your class name as a TYCSE, and we'll do the operation inside that. Okay, um, we don't want to what we say, change the table inside the existing data. Okay, so we all know that we did only select operation, and we perform bunch amount of operation on this existing table. Right now we don't want to use it. So just what should I do? I will minimize it, and I will create a fresh data types. Okay, database. So here I will create the database. Right click it on, click on the database, and just here provide the name of database. So I will use tycsc. So parameters, right now I don't want to use anything, so just click it and just check out whether the database is connected, created. So here database is connected, sorry, created TYCSC, and in that these options are available. Okay, schemas options are available. That's inside schema, there is a option called as a table. Okay, so click on the table. We don't have any tables. Make a note of that. Right now we don't have any table, and we need to create table inside that TYCSC. So we all know that. Just open the right click, and in last section in part one, we also discuss about if you don't know how to create a table, Then we have MySQL option, and in that, by using that, we can create a diagram and we can create a table. Also, we can create by using a right click. Okay, don't worry about that. So here, uh, also we can able to create a table. Okay, so click on the option where is the table, this one, right click it and create table. So by using manually we can also create the table, don't worry about that. Okay, so here by using this technique we can also create the table, but right now I don't want to use direct table, I want to create a table by using a query. Okay, so what should I do? I will open a query pad, query tool, click on that. Now, right now, I don't have any table and I want to create a table. So for that, just we need to analyze how we'll create the table, what will be the syntax. So just before that, I want to create a table for student and I have these three attributes. Okay, I have these three attributes. Okay, so what should I do? Here we'll write a syntax for the creation of table. Here I will write a syntax. How will create the create table. So first of all, we need to use a table name, create table. You need to specify table underscore. After that, inside the that we need to specify the attribute type and constraint. Okay, so for example, here we need to specify column name. Here we need to specify column name by using type, and if we have any constraint, then we will discuss about the constraint also. Don't worry about that. But we all know that not null, primary key, foreign key, these are considered as a constraint. Okay, not null value. So like that, these are the constant. Okay, so we can use any constant inside that. So like that, by using a comma separation. So here I will write. So here we create another column. So assume that this column one is there. Like that, we can create a number of columns. See? Instead of that, I will use second. And at the but and end of that, I will use third. Okay. So like that, we can create. So this one is a basic syntax to create the column. Okay. Sorry, to create the table. We all know that whenever if we want to create a table, we require a column. Without that, we cannot able to do that. Okay. So for that, we need to create a student table. We require the student attributes and data types, and we have some what we say constraint also there. Here I'm using a constraint as a primary key. In that section, I will use a constructor as not null. I can use that constraint, not null. So here also I will use constant as not null. Okay, so we can use that. Don't worry about that. Okay. So just open the student table and try to create a basic student table. Here I'm trying to create the basic. Here I will use create table. Table name is called as a student. Okay. And after that, in student, we need to specify the attribute. See, I have created that information. I'll update it into that same thing. Create table, table name, type, column constraint, comma, column name type, column constraint. Here is also we have a comma. And after that, so just we need to specify that things. So here, for example, we required a student first attribute as we can say that ID. Okay, we can say that we did not want to more complicate by using underscore. So just understand this is a very basic table. Just I want to create it. Okay, student ID. So what will be the type of ID? What will so just I will use s underscore ID because ID is a predefined function. Attribute is that. So yes ID. What will be the type of ID? We can use integer. We can use integer. Okay, we can use integer, we can use serial, we can use small int, we can use big int. Okay, so अगर हमने integer लिया, that integer data type is not auto increment. Okay, so we'll do two different kinds of operations. So in that section, just I will use integer, and in another example, I will use a serial data type. Don't worry about it. Okay. So what constant you need to use? So here I going to use a primary key. So I'm going to use a primary key. Just I have completed that. And if you want to use a constant, then you can use that. Okay, so comma that yes underscore name. Just for better understanding, just I will show you how to write a query. So first of all, here I write a student, bracket open, semicolon, enter. And inside that, you need to write a query. Inside that, you need to write a query. Okay. So we all know about the white spaces. Okay. So compiler or whatever any other technology, any technology which uh, ignore the empty spaces. So इससे थोड़ा सा अच्छा दिखेगा और आपको समझ भी आएगा. Okay. So first of all, we need to provide a student ID. We require a data type as integer, required a constant as a primary key. If you don't want to use, don't use that. Okay, just I'm showing the example. Second, s underscore name is there. Okay, so we required type as varchar. We can use a varchar as a data type. This is a alias name of varying character. Okay, don't worry. We can use a varying character also. So varchar, and here we need to specify the s name will be 20. This one is a type. Make a note of that. While using that, first one is attribute name, second one is a time, and third one is a constraint. Okay, so here we need to specify we did not want to empty name. Okay, so for that here I will use a constraint as a not null, and we'll do one more extra lecture. Don't worry about that. Okay, so we don't require that value not null, not null. And afterwards we require the attribute is a student email. Okay, so s underscore email, and again I will use a varchar. Size will be 50. I will use not. That's it. So I have created. See, you can easily read that statement. So that's why I have created. In the last, do not use a comma, okay, not null, because here the statement will be ended. Okay, if you provide the comma, then it will generate an error. Okay, so it is a syntactical error. So in last section, do not provide it. So just we have created that. Right now, check up out that. Does we have any tables? So right now, refresh it. I check in the table section, we don't have any table. Now I'm trying to execute that program. Here I'm working on the TYCSC. Make a note of that. TYCSC is my database. I'm just trying to execute the code. And here, see, we get the error not null. Just 1 minute, that constraint. Start trying to execute. See, not null. We need to specify the empty space. So query returns successfully. That means we have successfully created the table. Create table command is successfully executed. Now when I trying to check in the table section, we did not get any tables. Why? Because we need to refresh that table. So right click it on and click on the refresh. Once it refresh, click on the table. See, we get the student table. Okay, when we click on the constant, we get the constant also. See, student primary key constant is there, student primary key, and by using that, we get the constant also. Okay, so don't worry about that constant. We'll cover the constant chapter in later. So click on the columns and check out as ID is there, as name is there, email is there. That means what? We can create a table by using a query. Okay, so this is the way by using that we can create the query. So student table is there. Okay, now this is about creation of table. Now we heard about the primary key, we heard about the foreign key, we heard about the uh, relationship. Okay, so we can create also by using a query also, so don't worry. So just do the operation, basic operation on that, and later on I will show you how we'll create the foreign key by using a uh, by using query. So in that section, just we need to use our references. Okay. So in that, I will provide the reference of first attribute with second attribute in a table, and I will show you. Okay. So just I will show you another example. Here is a student, and another table will be created, and in that I will show you the another example of serial attribute. Okay. And later on, we'll do the insert operator. Just I want to retrieve the information of the student table. So here I will use the select all, everything. Select everything from the name of table is student. The name of table is the student. When I trying to execute the table, we did not get any value. Why? Because there is a this table is created now, and in that table does not contain any value. Okay, so see, PK is there, primary key is there, character varying is there. We already know that varchar is an alternate name of character varying. Okay, so don't worry about and don't confuse. Okay, so see, we get the all data. We get the attributes name only. Why? Because we don't have any data. We'll insert later on and we'll check for that. Okay, so right now select all from the student. Okay, now we'll create one more table, and in that we'll use the serial data type. Okay, so assume that the product table we need to create. In that we need to analyze what attributes we require. So here I want to create a table called as a product. So just tell me what attribute we required. Product ID is required, and that must be a unique. Okay, use product underscore ID required. That must be unique, and we can say that the primary key is required. Okay, then the product ID must be auto incremental. The serial type is required. Just we need to analyze. Okay, and after that, product ID, product name is there. For that, I will use a varchar. Product description is there. So again, I will use a varchar. So product price is there. So I think here we can use a double. So like that we can create options over here. So this one is a so varchar product name is a mandatory. So every attribute has a constant as a not null. Okay. So we can say that constant as a not null, constant as not null. Here also constant as not null. So we can use that. So let's do that and create that. Here I will use a create table. Table name is called as a product. And after that, here I will use round bracket open close. This is a standard way. So ऐसे ही बनाना है. So after that, we need to select the p underscore id. Okay, the data type is serial. Make a note of that. Here I want to use a serial. Means while inserting the data, I will not provide the value of PID, product ID. It will be auto-generated. Okay, so that's I will show you the differences. So PID underscore so PID data type is a serial, and here I want to specify the key as primary key. Okay, separation by comma. So after that, name P underscore name. Okay, the data type is varchar. Here we'll specify the name size is 20. This value must be a not null. And here I will use comma. So I will use later on, I think p underscore description is there, des. Here again use varchar and size is 200 product description. We all know that we purchase the product from the Flipkart and or Amazon and any other e-commerce website. In that section, just we need we check the any product, and we see the or we can verify the reviews of that product. We can we can fully describe that product. What are the users? What are the features of that product? So for that we require the description. So here I'm using a not null again. more is there? I think P price is there, product price is there. So in that case, I will use a double. That also not null. These are the constraints. Make a note about that. This middle part will be the data, and it is not mandatory to add constraint everywhere. Okay, if you don't want to add primary key, just remove it. If you don't want to use add constraint, remove it. Okay, and we'll perform other operation in alter table also, how to add and how to remove the constraint. Okay, once we set, right now I set the constraint as a primary key as a PID. Later I want to remove this, yes, I will remove that, okay, by using alter table. And ये आपको आना चाहिए, because once we created the design by using AR diagram, फिर से वो execute नहीं होता है, so manually we need to do that. So for that we need to understand how will alter the table, how will change the column. Okay, can I able to change the data type? Can I able to change the column name? Can I able to change the table name? So everything we need to do as a manually as a DBA, as a database administrator. Okay. So just I will do what? I will execute it. And what happened? Type double does not exist here. Type is not exist. So what should I do? I will use small int. Assume that small check out and execute it. Now see, query written successfully. So we successfully created. Right now, when we check in the table section, in the table we have only one table. In the section we have only one table. So right click it on and just refresh it. We have right now two tables, product and student. So just, and when I try to execute one more time, okay, make a note of that. ये भी बहुत important concept है. Once we execute the query, we cannot able to execute same query again and again. Make a note of that. When I trying to execute, we get the error. The relation product already exists. Okay, we get the error relation product execute. When I trying to again execute, so it will check already exist. Okay, so make a note of that. ये table फिर से create कर नहीं सकते. Okay, we can create one time only. Okay, so now the tables are created. Now I want to retrieve the data from the product table. So what should I do? We all know that. Select everything from the table name called as a product. Just hit it and trying to execute the program. See, PID, PName, P description, and P price is there. We get all the types. We get all the types. Okay.